Disney has defended its decision to recreate the aftermath of London's 7/7 bombings for a new drama after survivors branded the move shameful.
A Disney spokesperson said the team producing the series has significant expertise in this type of programme, incorporating extensive in-depth research that has been approached with the utmost sensitivity and respect. All involved are conscious of the huge responsibility that comes with telling the story. But it has, of course, caused a lot of controversy because some say that it's distasteful to profit from such a tragedy. So joining us now, I believe, are Stephanie Tayki and Julie Cook. Good morning, ladies. Julie, you famously had a great-grandfather, am I right, that was on the Titanic? And therefore, of course, that has become, with the passage of time, one of the longest running and most successful movies of all time. This is no different, is it?
I think it is different. I think, number one, when we look at movies like Titanic, they were made, certainly the James Cameron one was many, many years after the tragedy. I think it's still too soon. But I also think this in particular, we've heard from actual people who are still alive, who suffered as a result of this tragedy, who were maimed or injured or lost limbs. The bus driver this week came out saying that he thought it was distasteful and wouldn't be watching. So I think, the only people we should be listening to is them. And if they say it's distasteful, then it is.
But Julie, isn't it history? It's happened. It was a major event, a major world event. And look, The Crown is one of the most popular TV dramas on television. It's gone into great detail about the death of Princess Diana in Paris underpass to the horror of her children. But it still goes ahead. And nobody would really consider banning that, would they?
Yes, I agree. But I think we'll all agree as well that The Crown is about a majorly famous family in the public domain already, all of which has already been in the public domain. This tragedy is about people who are not in the public domain, people who have private lives, people who have relatives who are still grieving for those lost. I think it's very different.
Stephanie, I think we've sorted your audio out now, so hopefully you can hear us. There is a long tradition, as Andrew said, of dramatic events being immortalised in cinema. And I know that the image of the bus is distressing and would absolutely have been distressing to anybody that was involved and was a victim of that attack, to walk along and see that without warning. But we can't clamp down on drama being depicted, can we?
No, and I don't think we should. I think drama has always imitated life, and I think it should continue to do so as long as it's respectful and as long as it's tasteful. And I think this is what this Disney production is doing. It's worked closely with victims of the families. It's also got research to make sure that this production will be done respectively and sensitively as possible. The problem here is if we start erasing things from history, we're getting rid of facts. 9/11, Titanic, these are things that have all been brought to life. And I think people always tend to think it's under the guise of entertaining people for people to get their kicks out of it. That's not what it's about. It's about promoting awareness. This particular series that Disney are working on, it's about Jean-Charles de Mendes, so it's hardly focusing too much on the 7/7 bombings. It was a big failing of the Metropolitan Police 17 years ago, and his family are still demanding justice. How do they get their message out there? Through dramas such as this. It brings it back into the public's consciousness.
Julia, I was just looking, we all remember the horror of the Sower murders, those two lovely little girls, Holly and Jessica, and there was a drama made in 2022, just 20 years later, about that, what happened to those families. And that is only 20 years. There wasn't much of an outcry over it.
Yes, and I was surprised at that because I think that was incredibly distasteful. I don't think enough time had passed, and I think it was an incredibly distressing, as you say, story that all of us knew about. I agree with the sentiments of our other guests saying that, this is about promoting awareness of what happened and facts. But I think those facts can be presented in a documentary form, in a more fact-based form, without over-dramatising. I love drama, I love theatre, I love watching productions, but I don't think it aids really anyone's understanding necessarily of a tragedy like this. I think it can be done in a more factual way.
We were brainstorming earlier, Andrew and I, a list of dramas which have been made of real-life distressing events, and it's very easy to do. I mean, we off the top of our heads came up with Jeffrey Dahmer, serial killer, Ted Bundy, Lewis Belfield was an ITV drama, The Crown, as we've already mentioned.
Jimmy Savile.
Madeleine McCann's story's been immortalised in drama even, Stephen Lawrence. And so I think maybe the reason this story has become such a big thing here is only because of the image of the bus on the street. It was such a powerful image at the time of the terrorist attack, and it remains a very strong image. Perhaps, do you think, Julie, if the victims had been warned, or even the people in the area had been warned that this was going to be filmed, that of course the council have made money out of it as well, then maybe that would have been okay?
I don't think it would have been okay, but I think I agree it would have definitely softened the blow somewhat. I mean, I think that image, as you rightly say, of the bus, it brings back memories for every single one of us. I think we all know where we were when that took place. I, for one, worked in central London at that time, and, you know, we were struggling to get home and walking and scared to use public transport to get to our trains. It was an awful time for everybody in London. And we were just, you know, people who heard about it. So I think that particular bus is a real iconic symbol of what happened. But when you were mentioning those other dramatisations, I don't think this means it's okay to do this one just because other dramatisations have been done before. I think all of them are distasteful, frankly.
OK, thank you, ladies. Really interesting. Stephanie Tayki there and Julie Cook. Do you remember where you were?
I was actually in a queue to get a plane back from France, and some people kept coming up to me because they clocked who I was and said, "There's something terrible going on in London, and we've been told it's the grid has failed." I said, "It's a terror attack."
Did you?
Yeah.
You just knew it would have
instinct. Absolute instinct.
Yeah.
Because it was just implausible. That you couldn't get a phone, you couldn't ring, mobiles were closed down. Because, of course, mobile phones, as we discovered, were involved in the terror attack.
Of course. Yes, of course. I'd forgotten that detail, actually.
Yeah.